The garage was dead silent, except for the sound of four men pretending to be something they weren't. Fake Michael. They stood between me and the exit, clipboards out, jotting notes, inspecting my tools and gear like they were conducting a federal raid. One of them tapped his baton against his leg. Another ran his hand over my workbench, and all four of them stared at me like I was already in handcuffs. I kept my back toward them. U.S. Army shirt stretched across my shoulders. And in my right hand, hidden behind me, I gripped a loaded pistol. By HOA order, the tallest one said, "Your weapons are being confiscated immediately." I didn't answer. I just reached back and with one slow pull closed the garage door behind them. Clunk. The lock clicked. All four of them stiffened. They realized too late that the only exit in this garage had just disappeared, and I was standing between them and survival. Before we dive in, comment which country you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. Because to understand how four grown men ended up trapped in my garage trying to steal my weapons, you need to know exactly how this war started. I'd been in this HOA for years, quiet, private. I followed every legitimate rule except one. HOA President Marlene Briggs demanded something insane. Residents may not own military-grade weapons. That wasn't an HOA rule. That wasn't a county rule. That wasn't any rule. That was her fantasy, her own creation, something she scribbled on homemade letterheads to make herself feel like a dictator. My firearms were legal, registered, protected by state law, and my service pistol. That weapon had been with me through deployments long before this HOA ever existed. I told her no politely. Marlene Briggs didn't handle no well. First came the passive-aggressive warnings taped to my door. Then threats disguised as policy updates. Then she cornered me after a meeting and hissed, "People with guns don't belong in my community." I reported her to the county. She was humiliated. The board refused to support her. Her authority crumbled overnight. So she snapped. She created a fake HOA safety enforcement unit. Made-up division she invented out of thin air. She hired four wannabes, gave them black uniforms, cheap vests, and badges printed from some online costume shop. And she gave them one mission: go to his property, take his weapons by force if necessary. I never would have known they were coming if my phone hadn't buzzed. Ring camera motion detected garage. I opened the live feed. Four men walked straight into my garage without knocking, without announcing themselves, without permission. One tried opening my gun safe. Another started taking pictures of my ammo shelves. That's when I moved. I grabbed my pistol, tucked it behind my back, walked toward the garage, and stepped inside like nothing was wrong. Now, they were trapped. Four fake cops, no exits, no badges, no authority, just four men who broke into the wrong garage with the wrong soldier. And when the tallest one stepped forward again and growled, "Resistance will be considered hostile," I finally turned my head, looked each of them in the eyes, and said, "Boys, you're not leaving this garage standing." The tallest fake HOA cop took one bold step toward me, baton raised like he actually believed it meant something. "Stand down," he ordered. HOA protocol authorizes forcible disarmament for non-compliant residents. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. I just shifted my weight, and the first man charged. He came fast, swinging the baton at my ribs like he'd practiced in his bathroom mirror. His boots pounded against the concrete. His eyes were confident, arrogant, like he'd already imagined himself bragging about taking me down. He never finished the thought. Bang! The gunshot exploded in the metal garage, echoing like thunder. The round punched straight into his thigh. He screamed mid-stride, collapsing hard, sliding across the floor, and slamming into my toolbox. Before the others even registered what happened, I was already moving. The second fake cop lunged, hands out, trying to tackle me. Bad idea. I stepped into him, pivoted my hips, and pistol-hipped him across the face with a crack that echoed like a snapped tree branch. His head jerked sideways. Blood flew from his mouth. His body crumpled like a folding chair. Two down. The third man, bigger, stronger, angrier, grabbed my shoulder from behind and tried to yank me backward. Wrong choice. I spun, grabbed his forearm, and twisted it into a lock that no untrained man could escape. He screamed. I pushed harder. Snap! His arm broke clean at the joint. He dropped to the floor instantly, rolling, sobbing, clutching his limp arm like it wasn't attached to him anymore. 3 down. The last one, the only one smart enough to look scared, reached for his gun. I didn't give him the chance. My weapon rose with perfect muscle memory. Center mass, controlled breathing, clean trigger pull. Bang, bang. 2 rounds hammered into his chest. Not lethal, but enough to take every ounce of fight out of him. He staggered backward, hit the wall of my garage, and slid down into a sitting position, eyes wide, breath shaking, hands trembling as the pain set in. 4 down, all of them on the floor, groaning, bleeding, broken, defeated. Their fake uniforms were drenched with sweat, blood, and fear. Real fear, because only now did they understand the level of war they had walked into. Only now did they realize what Marlene Briggs had sent them to die for. The man with the broken arm whimpered. "Please, we were just following orders." She said, "You were dangerous." She said, "We had to take the weapons or she'd fire us." The one with chest wounds coughed. "We thought you were just some homeowner." I stepped over his legs, crouched low, and leveled my pistol between his unfocused eyes. I stared straight through him and said, voice cold enough to freeze the air, "You should have never stepped into my garage." He whimpered, begged, hands shaking like loose wires. I stood, holstered my weapon, and pulled out my phone with absolute calm. 911, I said. My home was invaded by 4 armed imposters pretending to be HOA police. Shots fired. All suspects down. Send deputies and medics. I ended the call. The garage was silent, except for the sound of 4 men learning exactly how badly they misjudged the wrong soldier. If you're enjoying this HOA story so far, like and subscribe because the story is only going to get better. The sirens were loud enough to shake the street by the time I finally unlocked the garage door. I stepped back, arms crossed, U.S. Army shirts soaked with sweat and gunpowder residue. 4 broken men lay on my garage floor, groaning, bleeding, clutching limbs that no longer worked right. The door lifted. Deputies froze. Every single one of them saw 4 men in fake HOA uniforms. Fake badges, fake authority, real blood, real injuries, and me standing over them like the last thing they ever wanted to meet. One deputy raised his hand. "Sir, are you okay?" I nodded once and handed him my military ID. The moment he read it, his entire posture changed. "Jesus, you're Army combat veteran?" I corrected. He exhaled hard, then knelt beside the downed men. None of these uniforms are legitimate. None of these men are law enforcement. They're impersonators. Exactly what they needed to hear. I pulled out my phone and showed them the Ring camera footage. The 4 men breaking into my garage, trying to open my gun safe, taking photos of my ammo shelf, talking about confiscating everything. The deputy didn't even finish watching before he stood up and said the words I'd been waiting for. "Cuff all 4. They're under arrest." The imposters cried, begged, tried to crawl. It didn't matter. They were dragged out one by one. But the real storm wasn't inside my garage. It was waiting across the street. HOA President Marlene Briggs stood on her porch, pale, shaking, clutching her phone like it could save her. The deputies walked straight to her. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you." She tried to talk her way out of it. Tried blaming me. Tried screaming HOA rights like it was a magic spell. It didn't save her. They put her in cuffs right there on her front lawn. Her charges stacked fast. Conspiracy to commit armed home invasion. Impersonation of law enforcement through proxies. Solicitation of violence. Attempted burglary of a residence. Marlene Briggs got 10 years in state prison. As for her fake officers, 3 to 7 years each, depending on their role, after spending 2 months recovering from the gunshots. Lifetime ban from any security work. Mandatory psychiatric evaluations. The entire HOA board collapsed within a week. County officials took control until a new lawful board could be formed. And me, I stayed right where I'd always been, in my home, on my land, with every weapon legally mine and untouched. No apologies, no fear, no HOA harassment ever again. I looked back into my garage for bloodstains, a dented toolbox, broken pride everywhere, and I muttered, and that's how 4 fake cops learned you don't walk into a soldier's garage unless you're ready to be carried out. The end.